tech legends, I hope you're all amazing. This is the brand new Boss GX-100, which is a floor-based modeler that contains the same modeling and effects algorithms as their flagship GT1000 series. But look at that, it's got a touchscreen on it that you can use for a whole bunch of different functions. You've obviously got 8 foot switches on here to perform with, a built-in expression pedal, and then around the back you've got an input for your guitar, you've got stereo outs, a headphone out, an effects loop, you've got space for an optional Bluetooth dongle on here so that you can edit this remotely. There's MIDI in and out and control switches on there, so you could use this to say switch your amp channels, or you could connect external expression pedals to it. Now, I have previously featured the GT1000 on the channel in a few different ways. So if you want to really dive deep into what the effects can do or what the amp modeling can do with the latest Boss Air D technology, I would recommend you go and watch those videos. What I really want to do in this video is just kind of showcase how the GX is different to the GT1000 under the hood, just in terms of the way everything is laid out and how you go about working on it. And of course, I want to do a whole bunch of noodling and showcase some presets on here. So let's just go all in on some grease to start, then I will build a preset from scratch. To give you an idea of the basic workflow on the GX100 and where it differs from the GT1000, I'm just going to dial in a quick rock preset from scratch on the unit. I'm going to start by hitting the effects button right here, which brings up a totally empty grid to start. This is the first main difference with the GT1000. The GT gives you every possible effect block on the grid at all times. It's actually one thing I don't really like about the GT1000. I much prefer this particular layout where you can use as little or as much as you need. So let's use just a few elements on here. I'm going to hit effects palette up here, and I get a long list of all the possible effects that I can drop on here. Just think of this like a bunch of pedals and amps. I'll start off by taking an amp, dragging it and dropping it. That immediately assigns parameters to these 4 encoders here. So I can go through and select a different type. Maybe let's go X modded. That's a great crunch style amp. I can page across, and all I really like to tweak on this one is to go to the sag control. I like to turn it down to about 5, bring the resonance up. I like to select the 4x12 speaker type on here, and then I just move the mic position down a little bit. This just gives me a straight up kind of crunch tone. Nice and thick, and turning that sag control and the resonance down gives it a nice forgiving feel on there. Let's add a few extra elements in here. I wouldn't mind a boost in front of this. I'm going to drag it and drop it. Just place it to the left so we'll insert it in front. To start with, I'm actually going to bypass that block. I wouldn't mind a delay and a reverb and maybe a phaser as well. So let's just scroll across. Let's go script phaser. I'll place that before the boost as well. We'll keep going because next we get all the different delays in here. I'm going to use the delay plus and place that after the amp. I might go with the pan or the jewel. Let's go for the jewel delay in there. Actually just immediately going to turn the effect level down and change the type to analog on each of these 2 delays. Otherwise, at stock settings, I think it's pretty good. So let's do that. Bring the effect level down. Let's scroll across and add a reverb in here. And at the moment, I'm just going to go with 6 blocks, but you can use many more blocks as we will see a little later. I wouldn't mind adding a wah in front of all of this and assigning it to the expression pedal. So let's place that at the front. We'll bypass the wah, we'll bypass the phaser, we'll bypass the delay for now, and we'll start with this amp and hall reverb. Then I'm going to add each of these elements just by touching and tapping the screen. After that, we'll assign them to foot switches. So that was pretty straightforward, and that generally makes me pretty happy. I've got a nice thick rhythm tone that I can boost with this mid boost over here for a lead tone. I can kick in the delay for some grease. I've got a wah and a phaser for some modulation options. But if I'm performing, I'm not going to lean down and tap and turn these effects on individually. I want them on the built-in foot switches. So let's hit Control/Expression and let's go to Assign settings over here. What I want to do is move down here and I can set the function per preset or globally for each of these controls. So let's do this. The category that I want for this first manual control is, let's have the boost on there. So I'll just scroll across to booster, and then I'm going to press this encoder here, which enables that particular button. So I can turn the boost on and off, and it's color coded. Let's do a similar thing for each of these here. I'll have the script phaser, I'll have the delay, and I'll have the reverb, and then I'll just turn them on and off with the foot switches. So we've got the delay there, and finally, let's just grab the reverb. As you can see, really, really straightforward. Let's exit out, and you can also see there's this kind of performance mode here, which shows me which blocks are assigned to these foot switches and which ones are on. So I'll have amp and reverb, then I'll bring in the boost, then I'll bring in the delay, then I'll bring in the phaser. So that was a pretty basic example from scratch, something I would consider a pretty bare bones live gigging preset. You can use a lot more blocks than that. You can even use multiple instances of blocks provided you've got the CPU covered. Let's take a look at this preset here. If I hit effects, I've got a wah, I've got a script phaser, an overdrive, then I go to a divider which splits between the X modded and the boogie amp model. The boogie amp model has a graphic EQ to sculpt it around a little bit more. Then we've got a mixer where I can balance out those two amps. I've got a noise suppressor. I've got a parametric EQ doing some more sculpting. I've got the dual delay in here. I've got a stereo pitch shifter for a detune effect. And then I've got the plate reverb at the end. I'm gonna go back out and you can see I've got the foot switches assigned to the overdrive, the phaser, the pitch shifter, and the delay in this case. So I'll turn all of those off and bring them in for you. I mentioned at the start of the video that I really enjoy how you don't have every possible effect block on the grid at the same time. I just like this from the perspective of bringing up a preset and being able to see exactly what is and isn't available in it. And I think this works particularly well if you're going to use the GX for effects only. So I have built a very straightforward preset with just 4 blocks in here. I'm not using the built-in amp modeling of the GX. I imagine this would be the way you would use it, say, as a standalone effects processor or in 4 cable method. So let's just hear some chorus, some delay, and some reverb. Thing about the overall architecture of the GX is that you can use multiple instances of the same block and just keep adding them until you run out of CPU, which, for example, on the GT-1000, it has a master delay block and then 4 very basic separate delays. In this case, I can run 6 different delays. I'm going to use 2 instances of the dual delay. I'm going to use a space echo. I'm going to use a stereo delay and 2 panning delays, plus some extra effects, which you wouldn't be able to do on the GT-1000. And I just did this as an experiment just to see if it would fit, but I actually think it sounds pretty good. Check it out. There's my first look at the GX-100 from Boss. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments section below. How do you feel about a Boss unit with a touchscreen and a simplified grid on it? Like I said earlier, they're the same modeling and effects algorithms from the GT-1000, and this feels like a really interesting kind of niche that Boss have tapped into here for people who want an improved UI, but also don't need everything plus the kitchen sink from the GT-1000. I think you're going to find a really happy medium in here. Boss also make the GT Core, which is a far more compact version of the GT-1000, but it still has all the same power under the hood. I guess you could argue that this is a little less powerful in the fact that it can't run every single effect at the same time, but also I would argue that that's just very rarely practical or pragmatic, and the fact that you don't have to have everything on the grid at the same time, I greatly prefer. And the touchscreen is a massive improvement when it comes to the UI as well. If you would like to support my channel, there are links to my Patreon and the music that I make in the video description. Feel free to leave a comment and fire any specific questions my way. Thanks for watching. I'll see you all next time.